Hello and welcome. Right now we're going to learn how to actually set up Java, how to install Java products so that we can start working with Java, programming in Java on our own computer. So the first step, and this will probably not surprise you, the first step in installing Java and being able to run Java on your computer is to get Java. First of all, what is Java? Java is a programming language, but when we say get Java, what we really are getting is two things. One, we're getting software that will let us get software that lets us run Java programs. Okay, now the odds are you already have this software because so many things that run on your computer nowadays do use Java. The problem is if you already have this software that lets you run Java, it actually doesn't help you because what you really need is not just software that lets you run Java programs, you need to get software that lets you compile Java programs, and that's going to be tricky to explain. In fact, let's give you a rough sense of that before we see the installation process. Here, I have a Java program. It lives in a file called something like, it doesn't matter, something.java. The file extension is .java. Then, I write that stuff in this .java file, and it will look like gibberish maybe at first, but you'll get the hang of it. And believe it or not, it's actually something that's closer to English than it is to something the computer can understand. It will look like computer speak to you, but trust me, it's actually intended to be something that you and I can understand. So, the next step, let's draw a nice thick arrow for this next step. You know, that doesn't look anything like an arrow. Clearly we should stick to thin arrows. Next step is that you compile it. So you take that program and you run it through something called a compiler, and this is the Java compiler. What is compiling? Compiling means, in fact, maybe this is worth writing down. Compiling means translating my program into an equivalent program in another language. In the case of Java, I'm translating my .java program into a program in a language called bytecode, Java bytecode. So let's see that. So what I get back is a file, and it is a Java bytecode. In fact, I will eliminate the word Java just so that we don't confuse ourselves there. It's a byte program written in a language called bytecode. And that program lives in a file called .class. So if this was test.java, this is now test.class that got created. So a new file gets created on my computer every time I compile my Java program. And that's great, except I want to run that program. So how do I do that? Well, I take my bytecode program and I feed that into the Java virtual machine, which is actually an interpreter. Java virtual machine. And the job of the Java virtual machine is actually run my program, actually run my compiled program. So we've got this, we type up a somewhat human readable file, we hit the compile button somehow, and the compiler will translate my program into an equivalent program, a program that does exactly the same thing but is written in a completely different programming language that for our purposes, if we were to look inside this file, it would essentially be ones and zeros to us. It would be gibberish. That program is written in a language called bytecode, but the Java virtual machine can run that bytecode. So let's connect this back to what we were talking about before. Get the program that lets us run Java programs. That's the Java virtual machine. And it really doesn't let us run Java programs, it lets us run compiled programs written in Java bytecode, whatever that is. And before I can do that, I need to get software that lets me compile my Java programs, meaning translate from my .java, the somewhat human-readable version of my program, to a different language, the same program in a different language that hopefully means something to my computer. So this is the compiler. So I need to get both of these things. In order to get both of those things, I need to download the JDK, Java Development Kit. The JDK. How do I get a JDK? Well, I go to Google. Actually, before we go to Google, maybe we should stop and point out you may not need a JDK. You may already have one. So, if you have Mac, you already have a JDK. Nothing left to do. You have Java, you have a Java compiler, it came with your Mac, you're done. On the other hand, if you have a PC, if you're running Windows, you need this, unless you know for sure you've already installed it. So, you go to Google, and you say, I need a JDK. Hopefully there's no pornography named JDK. Let's see. Nope, we're good. Java SE downloads. What that means, actually I do know, SE stands for Standard Edition. So here is Oracle's Java download page. And it looks like there's lots of things I can download. Oh boy, lots of things. Let's get the good stuff on the screen here. And you'll notice, first of all, there's 100 different versions. What do we want? We want the standard one. And I believe we're already on the Standard Edition page. It says Standard Edition here. And you'll see JDK and JRE everywhere. Do you want to download the JDK or JRE? We want the JDK, the Java Development Kit. That includes the compiler and the virtual machine that runs our programs. The JRE, or Java Runtime Environment, that only includes the virtual machine. That can run compiled programs, but it won't let us compile and run our own new programs. It doesn't let us compile new programs. So, we will download the JDK. Let's see, download JDK. And we'll just go with whatever's newest. Apparently, as of this date, it's Java Standard Edition 6, Update 25. I'm sure it'll be something fancier by the time you click on this. And, let's see, it makes us accept license agreement. Of course we accept this license agreement, no problem. We trust them implicitly. And then it gives us lots of choices. And my guess is that what you have is one of these Windows machines. Either you have Windows x86 or x64. How do you know if you have 64? Well, hopefully you know you have a 64-bit machine if you do. I happen to not. I have a cheap old machine, so I download the x86 one. Looks like 77 megs, so it's going to be a huge file. I've chosen to download it, I tell it where to save it, and then I have this file. Once I have it, I will eventually double-click, run it, install, next through all of the choices, go with all the defaults, and it will take a long time, because even after downloading 77 megs, it's going to take a long time to install this software. And when I'm done, my computer will be capable of compiling and running Java programs, but I won't feel that that's a great achievement yet, maybe. So, once you have that Java development kit, and it will take you a long time and it will be a nuisance, but once you have it, that brings us to step 2. Having gotten Java, get a development environment. Something sometimes called an integrated development environment, or IDE. Technically we don't need this, but it's going to make our life much, much easier. So, we could, if we wanted to, we could run, taking a while, we could run Notepad or something like that, some sort of text editor, and write our Java programs. That doesn't look like a Java program, maybe this does. We could write our Java programs in here, and we can compile them from the command line and run them from the command line, and maybe I'll show you how to do that soon enough. But we don't need to, because there are lovely development tools that do this stuff for us. What does a development environment do? Well, it doesn't compile Java programs, and it doesn't run Java programs. Instead, it provides buttons, menus, etc. that let us compile and run Java programs, meaning it provides some fancy Windows widgets that when we hit the compile button, it's going to make sure to run this compiler that we already downloaded. And when we hit the run button, it's going to make sure to run my program using the Java virtual machine that we already downloaded, also as part of the JDK. Okay, great. It doesn't compile, it doesn't run, it does do these things. What else does it do? Well, it makes my code pretty. So it colors my program in pretty colors, which is nice. It usually automatically indents my code, we'll see that tabbing and indenting makes my program much more readable, so that's an excellent thing. And there are many development environments out there, many development environments. Let me give you examples. There's something called NetBeans, and I believe that's what Java itself pushes. But the most popular ones, there's one called Eclipse that tends to be used by professional Java developers, and I strongly do not recommend the Eclipse environment for those people who are just starting to get your feet wet, because the Eclipse development environment requires you to create projects and workspaces, often to know about what a class path is, and so on. Some fancy things just to be able to do some basic, I want to create a file and write a program. So there are many other ones that are like this. BlueJ has all the same requirements, but is definitely easier for beginners, and you might check out BlueJ if you like. There are many others. My personal favorite, though, lately, is something called DrJava. And the advantage of DrJava, just like Eclipse and BlueJ, it is cross-platform. It runs on both Windows and Mac and Linux, so that's an excellent thing. In fact, it's written in Java, as is BlueJ for that matter. It's written, and Eclipse may be too. I'm not sure of that one though. DrJava is written in Java, which is going to mean that it runs on any computer that can run Java programs, so that's excellent. And it doesn't require creating projects and workspaces, and for that reason I think it is much easier. It also does one other thing that I really like. It lets us write code interactively, and you'll see me using DrJava in my examples, then you can decide for yourself if you like it. Alright, so real quick, let's look at how we can obtain DrJava, and there's not much to it. We go back to our web browser and we Google for DrJava. There it is, DrJava. And actually I really just want to download DrJava. Oh, I should point out, all of this software is free. Java is free, Eclipse is free, BlueJ is free, DrJava is free. We're just going with DrJava here. DrJava. But you can use anything you like, and there are many other free or nearly free development environments out there. Alright, it says, when I go to the download page, it says there's a current stable release. I like that it's current, I like that it's stable, I like that it's been released to me, so that sounds good. And I have a choice of downloading a jar file, a Windows app, or a Mac OS X app. Well, this is an easy decision. If I have a Mac, I'm going to click here and download the Mac OS X app. If I have Windows, I'm going to click here and download the Windows application, and that will give me a .exe file. I should point out that when I download this, it's really just one little file that sits on my desktop or wherever I install it. It doesn't actually create a start menu option or anything. It'll look like it's a shortcut, but it's actually the entire software sitting on your desktop. You double click on that icon and it runs DrJava. If you have any trouble at all, if you're on a Linux machine, you definitely want the jar file. If you're on a Windows or Mac machine and you double click that file and it doesn't run for any reason, you have some weird operating system set up or something, then instead download the jar file, and that will work well for you too. The jar file means it's an executable that runs directly in Java. Look, it's trying to download it now, except I don't actually want it because I already have DrJava on my system. But definitely start with the Windows or Mac one if you have Windows or Mac, and then if you have any trouble, try downloading the jar file, and that will usually work for you. I'll see you in the next video where we'll get started actually using DrJava and writing some Java software.